Welcome to the Codecast podcast by the Austin Code Department, where we talk about everything code related. In this episode, we sat down with an inspector to talk about a case that had a major impact on them. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hi, my name is Irma, and this is my story as a code inspector. The story I want to talk about today is a case that I worked on East Austin. During that time, I was fairly new to the city of Austin and was receiving calls, but this one was a particular call that caught my attention. Normally, when I look at the complaint text on a call, I try to read or see what is it that the concerned citizen wants addressed. What is it that the neighborhood is looking at that I need to read into, and if I can find what they're seeing. So what I did was I printed out my complaint form and I went by the address one afternoon and I drove slowly by. And one of the things that caught my attention was that against the front wall of the house, I could see a lot of debris. And that debris, I can also see red gasoline cans that are used to carry like gasoline for the lawnmower or for a vehicle. So that caught my attention, and I thought, that's not a good thing. And then I could also see that there was debris blocking a window. So I decided to, because I was fairly new to the city of Austin and I wanted to get some input from my supervisor and from my investigator. So I took some photos. I went back to the office and I shared what I had seen from the right-of-way with my supervisor and with my investigator at the time. And we decided that the investigator would accompany me the next day so we could knock on the door and talk to whomever was residing there. So we did that. The following day we knocked on the door, and a female answered the door. We introduced ourselves and we explained the purpose of our visit. As we walked up to the door, though, I could see that there were children on this property. So we knocked on the door, the lady came out, we introduced ourselves, and we explained why we were there, who we were, why we were there, and handed out our business cards so that they would know who to contact or who had been there. And she invited us inside the house. I could see that there was not just one child, there were several children in the house. But as I walked in through the front door, to the left was the kitchen, and I could see that there was like fire damage on the counters, and apparently the kitchen had burned. There was fire damage on the wall also. They didn't have a working stove. They didn't have a working refrigerator. As I continued to walk, I could see numerous violations, and I could see that these violations were very, very unsafe for the children involved in this that were living there. And what really concerned me when I saw that, and as I dissected the information I'm taking in, what I'm looking at, and all these violations is, oh my goodness, there's these adults, because she was living there with her husband, And then there was, I think, a couple of others that were about 18, but not yet 21. But the rest were younger. And I thought, who is their voice? I could see electrical receptacles with electrical wires hanging out. They didn't have the covers. Some of the receptacles had been fire damaged. There was a lot of debris inside the house. So if no one could get in, how could anyone get out? And I was thinking, and what about these children? How would they get out if in case of fire, or if there was a panic of some sort? How would these babies get out? These babies can't speak. At that point in me, I thought, I'm their voice. And I thought, what is it that we need to do today that is going to begin to remedy the situation? So we began to speak to the resident, and we spoke to the resident, and as we started to speak to her to kind of get an idea of what her situation is, because a lot of times many people are not aware of what is out there in terms of resources. If, for example, if someone loses their job, well, a lot of times they figure, I don't have the money to move. How am I going to do this? But the city of Austin has wonderful resources. So we can always pick up the phone and try to call someone and get some outreach going, because sometimes people are just scared to call also. But in this particular case, the children really worried me. The babies, well, the adults too, but they can walk, they can talk. Babies can't. And I think one of the youngest ones might have been about 3 years old. So as we continued to walk, we went out the back door and around the house, and I noticed that some of those windows had plywood. And I thought, oh my, no, I can't, we can't. And I said, I need to really start documenting all this. I said, but I believe that it is imperative that we make some sort of effort to contact the owner or owners today. We need to have some sort of communication with someone today. These people had nowhere to cook food. They had nowhere to store food. They had all these violations. And then all those cans of gasoline. So if anything were to occur, we didn't want that to go any further. So we decided to make an attempt, instead of just sending a notice, get a hold of someone to meet us out there that day. Beautiful thing about this, the way it ended, is that the owners did show up. They were there within about an hour, because we were able to get some stuff printed and things like that, get the correct placards out there, and do this. The owner met us, and he had other properties, and he had one that was vacant. So he was able to get them to start the process of moving them to another house that was more fit for human habitation. And later on, I got moved to another district and to do something else, and Moses continued with that case till it was resolved.